Welcome back, everyone. This is the Revenue Governor. I am April, your host, and it is Friday. We're going to close out our current series where we are going through revenue control signals. I am titling this episode, You Don't Have Six Problems. You, in fact, have one system failing. Pipeline, coaching, forecast, reporting. They are not separate. They break in order. And by the time you see it at the top, it's already too late because what you're seeing at the end, well, that's the result of everything that wasn't controlled from the beginning. It starts earlier than most leaders actually think. Forecast optimism without inspection. Well, confidence gets declared before anything is even verified. So what does that mean? Well, a rep will say, this deal looks strong. A manager will then agree. Leadership then accepts it, and no one asks, well, what actually changed? What proof do we have? The system ends up moving forward on assumption, not evidence, and that's when the first break happens. You didn't even notice, did you? Because nothing actually looks wrong yet, does it? The number hasn't moved. Pipeline, it still looks fine. The system just accepted something that was unverified. Don't you think that will have consequences? Once that happens, everything downstream, it's going to inherit that behavior. This is the moment most leaders overlook. Their first missed moment. Not the actual forecast call, not the actual miss. The first time a deal is actually accepted into pipeline without proper inspection. Why is that? Well, because that's when the system sets the actual standard, the behavior. And that behavior is something that you can look forward to because if it sounds right, it's going to move, right? That's what your reps are going to think. And once that's the standard that is set, it is going to repeat everywhere, guys, everywhere. So what's going to happen next? Well, once confidence is assumed, activity is going to drastically increase. Now, what does that mean? You're going to see more calls, more emails, more updates, except you have activity without proper accountability. So everyone's working, everyone's busy, dashboards, they're looking active. But what about the one question, what has improved? Can you answer that? Well, that's where things are breaking because activity is happening, but nothing is actually changing. You have no new stakeholders, no confirmed decisions, no movement in the deal. All you have is motion. That is the activity trap. This is where most organizations get misled. Activity creates the feeling of progression because meetings fill calendars, CRMs fill notes, managers feel like things are moving, but activity is one of the easiest things to produce. But guess what? It's one of the least reliable indicators when it comes to your progress. Have you ever thought through what your system does in that moment? Because it starts rewarding motion, not outcome. That is a pipeline problem because now your pipelines are filled, deals are entering early, they stay longer than they should, they start inflating coverage. You got pipeline without qualification and it looks so strong because there are more deals, more coverage, more opportunity. But what's it built on? A weak entry. No validated problem, no confirmed stakeholder, no clear buying process. And because nothing was enforced earlier, those deals, they're going to stay. Now you have a removal problem. Pipeline doesn't just break at entry, it breaks at removal. Most teams know which deals are weak. They just don't remove them. Because removing deals, what does that create? We talked about it. Pressure. Your pipeline's going to shrink. Your coverage is going to drop. The number's going to feel at risk because it is. So instead of removing it, what do? They keep it. And pipeline becomes an accumulation and not an opportunity. So let's talk through why your coaching actually fails. Well, now managers have to step in. Coaching without deal inspection. They see the problem, they give the feedback, they try to help, but they don't inspect the deal appropriately. They coach to patterns. I have heard so many leaders say, I coach to patterns verbatim, not decisions. That is a problem. You need to ask better questions. You need to stand stronger on your next steps. It sounds right. It just doesn't change anything because the issue wasn't the behavior in general. It was execution in a specific deal, and no one has looked at it. You know, when I was doing this series, I talked through Nuta because she was my manager. She actually hired me at my last company. And one thing that really stood out was her looking at every deal and breaking down every deal because It wasn't necessarily something that I was used to when it came to a leader looking into your deal. But what was even better was that I had the answer for all of the questions that she had, because I believe you have to understand exactly what is going on and why something is not moving. And it has to be transparent in order for you to actually make something of that deal. Nuta stood out. She's amazing. And it was so cool to see, because it's not something that you see within the industry. Usually, this is where teams get stuck, because you're coaching, it'll feel productive. You'll see those conversations happening. You'll see yourself giving feedback. There's alignment, but nothing is actually changing in the deal. Well, think about it. Who broke the deal down? What actually happened? Where did it fail? What should have changed? Does the issue repeat itself? Probably. It'll probably repeat itself across the deal, across the rep, across weeks, months, quarters, years. So where does the forecast actually break? Well, now the forecast gets built. Forecast without deal level evidence. So deals get committed, confidence begins to increase. The number, it's going to roll up. Revenue is not going to look the same though. It's going to sound solid, but no one can point to a real buyer with movement. No one can say what changed, what actually progressed, what was proven. So the number then becomes what? Interpretation, layered across the system. Now, what does the forecast call reality here? Most forecast calls follow the same exact pattern. Reps give updates, managers, they summarize those updates, leadership then listens, a few questions get asked. The number gets accepted though, but listen closely. Strong deals are barely challenged. Weak deals are beginning to get explained, they're not inspected, and the goal becomes get through this forecast call that I have on my calendar every week. Not validated. The system then what? It reinforces speed instead of truth. Now it's visible reporting without enforcement. The dashboard, it shows everything. Conversion is down, pipeline is weak, deals are stuck. Everyone can see it, and they see it clearly. Everyone agrees on it. But what changes? Nothing, because no one enforces anything different. There's an illusion of control here. This is the most dangerous part, because now leadership, they feel informed. They have the data, they have the dashboards, they have visibility, guys. But they don't control anything, do they? Because nothing is being enforced. Visibility, it's going to become a substitute for action, and the system is going to stall. Now let's look into the system. This is not 6 failures. It is one large loop. Each stage hides the one before it. Pipeline hides qualification. Coaching hides deal quality. Forecast hides lack of evidence. Reporting hides lack of enforcement. So leaders fix what they can see. The number, the pipeline, the output. Not what actually caused it. So why does this keep repeating? I'm so glad you asked. Each stage, it delays the truth. By the time you actually see it in reporting, the problem is already embedded. It is embedded. So leaders are going to react late. They're going to adjust the numbers. They're going to push harder. They ask for more activity, more activity, more activity. But think about it, guys. What are they reacting to? The output, not correcting the actual system. So let's make this real. You have been in this room. A forecast call that sounded right. Deals, they were discussed. Confidence, it was high. Everyone seemed aligned. No one challenged the deals. No one asked what actually changed, what happened. The number got accepted. And then weeks later, what happened? Revenue was missed. And so I bet metrics were not met. It probably felt like a surprise, didn't it? Well, it wasn't. We weren't wrong at the end. We were wrong the entire way through. So what will fix this? I am so glad we're here. Most teams try to fix the outcome, the forecast, the pipeline, the reps. That is not the fix. The fix is control. What gets inspected? What gets enforced? What is allowed to move forward? Allowed. If that's not controlled, nothing downstream can be trusted. What control should actually feel like? Let's talk about it. A controlled system, it's going to feel different. It's going to feel slower, more precise, probably even uncomfortable, because deals don't move easily. So your pipelines, they're not going to grow quickly. Forecasts, though, they're not going to sound overly confident because they're real. Everything is verified. This isn't 6 problems. It is one system that is breaking on you. And if you don't fix control at the beginning, you'll keep trying to fix outcomes at the end. You don't have a revenue problem. Until next time.